In 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed under Franklin D. Roosevelt to help lower-class workers get back on their feet in the midst of the Great Depression. As a staple of FDR's New Deal, the FLSA included the nation's first federal minimum wage. Its purpose, according to Roosevelt, was to be enough for any one person to make a decent living while working full-time, or as he put it, more than a bare subsistence level. Roosevelt went so far as to say, no business which depends for existence on paying less than living wages to its workers has any right to continue in this country. Ha. Ha ha.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
The nation's financial situation has changed drastically since then. So drastically, in fact, that a graph of wealth inequality in the United States looks awfully familiar. Ah yes, that's it. Here's a graph of wealth inequality in France in 1789, right before a certain revolution. Oh my, the resemblance is uncanny. Yes, wealth inequality has become a genuine problem in the United States. For instance, while Home Alone star and billionaire President of the United States Donald Trump hasn't paid so much as $1,000 in taxes in the last 3 years, other citizens struggle to get any financial aid at all from the government as it doesn't have the funding for the same social safety nets other countries offer their citizens despite having a GDP 10 times greater than theirs. Where that extra money goes, we may never know. What we do know, however, is that this lack of adequate social safety nets has made it difficult for American workers to make a decent living, with no guarantee of paid sick leave, financial aid in the case of sudden unemployment, or even universal health care. The difficulties unnecessarily manufactured for the American worker have become an issue dubbed the stickiness of the ends, as those stuck at the upper and lower ends of the wealth distribution ladder rarely change places. In fact, this movement across our figurative ladder is known as social mobility, and the United States is ranked as the second worst, first world country in terms of social mobility, ahead of only Israel. This comes to no surprise considering the advantages the rich are given over the poor, such as a minimum wage that hasn't kept up with inflation but corporate tax breaks that have. To visualize, let's say this rice grain represents $500,000. Once we put aside and process how expensive this particular grain of rice is, we can visualize just how grave the issue of wealth inequality has become in the United States. These 5 grains of rice represent how much an average American, like you or I, can expect to make in our entire lifetime, about $2.7 million. To contrast, these 13 pounds of rice represent how much Jeff Bezos is currently worth. Not how much he's made up to this point, but how much wealth he is currently in possession of. And this is how much money Amazon Incorporated paid in federal taxes in 2018. Amazon didn't pay any money in federal taxes in 2018, or 2017 for that matter. They got federal tax refunds worth a total of $266 million, $162 million of which it paid in federal taxes in 2019, equal to 1.2% of its pre-tax income. The lowest income 20% of households, on the other hand, paid 11% of their income in the same year, further reducing their much needed funds as they find it more and more difficult to make ends meet. According to Michael Linden, writer at The Guardian, if corporations and the richest 1% of Americans were to pay taxes more proportionate to their wealth, the country could easily afford programs to benefit the other 99%, such as universal health care, or aid for the unemployed, the latter of which is far too often overlooked as an issue. An example being the closing of an Electrolux factory in 2006, which left 3,000 hard-working Americans with no way to support themselves or their families overnight. The impact this had on their mental health took a toll on their physical health too, landing several in the hospital with no way of paying medical bills. When the company closed another factory in Sweden the following year, similar effects were observed. Haha, no. I'm kidding. Being ranked the fourth highest nation in terms of social mobility, Sweden's Electrolux workers were paid 80% of their salary as long as they searched for new employment, or studied in school to learn new skills to apply in the job market. The closing of this factory had little adverse effect on their citizens or economy. The same could be the case for the United States, if our government would focus more on the majority and less on the few. While a handful of politicians advocate for a wealth tax or higher minimum wage so people in the richest country in the world don't starve to death, such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Andrew Yang, or Bernie Sanders, others oppose these ideas and dismiss them as radical ideology, though I won't point fingers. Regardless, the United States could do so much more for its people by passing simple, rational legislation and being more supportive of those in need rather than kicking them while they're down. By electing progressive representatives of the community, the United States can fix its issue of wealth inequality and the stickiness of the ends, and we could truly, finally, make America great again.